In order to fully understand this story, I need to provide a bit of context first. I'm a single mother, and I live with my daughter Shannon, who was 16 at the time of this happening. Shannon had just gotten her driver's license the month prior, so she was spending a good majority of her time picking up her friends and driving them around at night. I work a typical 9-to-5 job, so I'd always be home alone in the evenings whenever she went out. What happened on this night still makes me sick to my stomach whenever I think about it. It was a Friday night. Shannon left the house around 8 to pick up her friend Andrea. They were planning to go see a movie at 8:45, then hang out and drive around for a bit until her curfew at midnight. On her way out, I told her to text me updates throughout the night, being the hypervigilant mother I am. It wasn't that I didn't trust Shannon, because she's always been very responsible and punctual, but it was more so to just make sure she was safe. Once she left, I went to my room and flipped on some Netflix, planning on waiting up until she got back home. Sometime around 8:30, Shannon texted me that she and Andrea made it to the movie theater, so I sent her back a thumbs up emoji and thanked her for letting me know. More time passed, and I was in the kitchen making food when my phone started going off in my room. I ran upstairs to find that I had a missed call from an unknown number. It wouldn't allow me to call the number back, so I brought the phone down with me in case they left a voicemail. After glancing at my phone every so often for the next few minutes, I still didn't get a voicemail, so I thought nothing of it and pretty much forgot about it. Maybe a half hour later, sometime around 10 o'clock, my phone started ringing again. This time, it was right next to me, so I was able to get it right away. It was from a blocked number again, just like before, so I decided to answer it. "Hey, is this Shannon's mother?" Apprehensive, I said. "Who is this?" The man said that his name was Joe and that he was a paramedic. What he said next literally left me speechless. "Look, Shannon's been in a bad car accident. I think you should get over here now." He gave me the name of the street and general location of the crash, and I hurriedly wrote it down on a piece of paper, trying to hold back the overwhelming amount of emotions I was feeling. Before I could give much of a response, he said, "I gotta go," and hung up. At that very moment, I felt like my entire world was crashing down all at once. I scrambled around the house to get dressed, grabbed my keys, and took off as fast as I could in my car. The location he described to me was on a small stretch of road in the parkway. It was only about 10 minutes away from my house, and we had spent a lot of time driving through there together for practice when she had her temps. A million different scenarios were racing through my mind as I dangerously sped to the parkway, crying so much to the point that I could barely see the road. Then, it dawned on me to try calling Shannon, even though it probably wasn't going to get me anywhere. As soon as I pressed call, her phone went straight to voicemail, and the awful feeling I had only continued to get worse. On a whim, I decided to call Andrea. Her phone rang the entire 30 seconds, but she didn't pick up either. I set my phone down and went back to focusing on the road, praying that they were both okay. Suddenly, as soon as I turned onto the parkway, my phone started ringing. I grabbed it off the passenger seat to see that it was Shannon. I picked it up instantly and asked if she was okay as I tried to pull myself together, but what she said made me slam on the brakes in the middle of the road. "Is everything okay? We're in the middle of the movie, remember?" Right when I heard this, my tears stopped, and I went from being a total mess to absolutely petrified in the matter of seconds. "Wait, you're at the movie theater?" I asked, as I tried to figure out what in the world was going on. She gave me an annoyed, yeah, Mom, that's why my phone was on Do Not Disturb." I told her that I'd explain everything soon, but that she needed to come home immediately. She was quite reluctant after hearing that, but she gave in and agreed shortly after, probably recognizing my tone. I made a 3-point turn in the middle of the dark wooded road and sped home just as fast as I drove there while I called the police. I explained everything in detail to them on the phone, and they instructed me to head straight home, stating that they'd send officers over to take my statement. I arrived home shortly after, followed by Shannon and Andrea, who pulled into the driveway, who were still completely clueless as to what was going on. I explained to them that I got a call from a man claiming to be a paramedic who said that Shannon crashed her car and that I needed to get there right away. They were both dumbfounded, obviously having been at the movie theater the entire time. The police searched the area that the man had described to me on the phone, but nobody was there, except for one thing. A flip phone had been smashed on the side of the road in the exact area I was told to go. Even now, I have no idea how they knew my daughter's name and had my phone number. If someone was sick enough to make up a story like that to get me in the middle of the woods by myself at night, There's absolutely no way it could have been anything good. I still think about that night multiple times every day, and I've since warned all of Shannon's friends' parents about this happening. This entire situation still gives me an awful feeling, because if Shannon hadn't called me back, I would have driven right there, and I probably wouldn't be around to tell this story. My family and I are from Australia. Back in 2007, we decided to take a month-long holiday to America. We rented a car and traveled from LA up the West Coast, and then back down through Nevada. One night, we were traveling towards Lompoc and stopped in Santa Barbara for the night to sleep. We drove around for a while looking for a decently priced motel that didn't look too shady. My mom and dad found a place that looked okay enough, so they went inside to inquire about the price of a room for the night, while my sister and I stayed in the car and listened to our music on our iPods. We were bopping along to the Fray album I had bought that day when my sister removed her headphones and said, "Look at Mom, what is she doing?" I looked out the window where I could see into the reception area of the motel and saw my dad talking to the manager as my mom stood there displaying very cold and odd body language. She's usually very friendly with staff everywhere, so this was odd for her. "What's wrong with her?" I said to my sister as we kept a close eye on them. My mom was standing behind my dad with her arms crossed, looking around the place as if she was on guard for something, which was definitely out of character for her. After some time, my mom and dad got back into the car and discussed what to do about staying the night. My dad stated that we wouldn't find anywhere cheaper for the night, and that he was also hungry, so he suggested that we just stayed there. Plus, it was the last room available, so we had to make a quick decision. To his dismay, my mom disagreed. "I don't like this place. I have a bad feeling." My dad argued on, getting more and more irritated that my mom couldn't explain what she didn't like about the place, until she finally snapped and yelled over my dad saying, "We are not staying here." My dad screamed fine as he started the car and backed out of the motel driveway. At this point, my sister and I were looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? But we stayed quiet as Mom seemed on edge. Anyway, we ended up finding a place to stay that my mom approved of, so we bunkered down for the night. In the morning, we were all bustling around the motel room getting ready for the day when my dad turned up the TV to hear a news story about a shooting at the motel my mom didn't want to stay at. It turns out, about 15 minutes after we left, a couple walked in and booked that last room, and the man that was behind them shot them because they took the last room. We all turned to look at my mom, who was standing there wide-eyed, watching in horror. "I told you, I had a bad feeling about that place." We were all in genuine shock, and I definitely took away one thing from that day. Always trust your gut, or better, always trust your mom's gut. When I was 13, my family and I were on our way home from a Wednesday night church service. My mom was in the driver's seat and I was behind her in the back. My 5-year-old brother was in the middle, and my 10-year-old sister was on his other side. We were just down the road from the church, but it was a country road and it was late, so there was no light and no one else on the road. We were just about to make a turn when all of a sudden, a car came swerving directly in front of us. The driver of the car was taking the turn so fast that they came into our lane and almost hit us. We swerved as they tried to get in their own lane before we collided. Unfortunately for them, they overcorrected the turn and flipped, then landed on the driver's side door in a ditch. My mom, of course, hit the brakes and immediately jumped out of the car to go help whoever was in there. She got about 3 steps away from our car and stopped dead in her tracks. My sister and I were sitting there with our mouths hanging wide open, still trying to take in what just happened. All I remember thinking was how surreal it all felt, as I'd only seen stuff like that in movies. For some reason, my mom was still standing there, no longer approaching the car. It was summer, so all the windows to our car were rolled down. I then heard a person start yelling for help from inside, and my mom started moving again to help him, but for some reason, she stopped again in the center of the road. Suddenly, another car flew up behind us, and the male driver didn't hesitate to jump out and run up to the crash to help. Once the man got to the car, he started prying at the driver's side door to help him get out. It looked like my mom wanted to help, but she couldn't move from her spot. Once the guy who stopped to help finally got the car door open, the guy inside crawled out and crouched on the top of the car, acting really strangely. Seeing this, my mom started shuffling back to our car, clearly creeped out by him. In a matter of seconds, the man jumped off the car and started hitting the guy who was helping him. He then ran towards our car, but my mom was thankfully able to get there first, so he changed directions and went for the car behind us. My mom got in and locked our doors just as he jumped into the other car's driver's seat. He accelerated without even closing the door, narrowly missing us. Suddenly, the guy who was carjacked ran up to my mom's window, screaming and knocking. My mom was obviously shaken, so she only cracked the window open so we could hear him. He was begging to my mom to call 911 because his girlfriend and phone were in the stolen car. Panicking, my mom couldn't find her phone, so I dialed 911 on mine and gave it to her. While my mom was on the phone with the operator, we heard a woman scream down the road. The man who was at our window ran towards the sound and later returned with the scraped-up girlfriend. My mom unlocked the doors, and he placed her in the passenger seat as we waited for the police. The girlfriend explained that the carjacker tried to attack her while he was driving, but he eventually pushed her out of the moving car at about 60 miles per hour. The police arrived and gathered our statements. One officer informed my mom that the carjacker had shot and killed someone behind an apartment complex, which partially explained his erratic behavior. When we finally got home, we were told to go to bed, but I couldn't sleep, still shaken up from the whole thing. I went to talk to my mom and asked why she didn't keep running to the car like the other guy, and her response left me in awe. She told me that she didn't know why, but for some reason, she had an inexplicably strong feeling to not approach it. When she heard the cries for help, she wanted to help again, but that same feeling prevented her from approaching the car. To this day, I still wonder what would have transpired if my mother hadn't heeded that inner voice. The carjacker could have easily overpowered her and reached our vehicle, had she been just a few steps closer.